Fire Call, the Fire Safety Show, Division Chief Jim Sedaris.
Hi, my name is Division Chief Jim Sedaris, and you are watching Fire Call, where we take you behind the scenes, and this is our big 50th episode. So, crews are going out now. This is our 50th episode, and we're going to have some really cool stuff on this show. We're going to go to a 2-alarm fire at night, sub-zero temperatures. You're going to find out how those firefighters operate in those temperatures, how we fight fires, and you're going to look at also nighttime operations. We got a lot of video for that. You're going to meet our newest fire marshal, Fire Marshal Dean Lanier. He's going to talk about being a fire marshal and also our fire inspectors and investigators. And we're going to answer a lot of your questions about the show. Because it's the big 5-0, you'll want to know stuff and we're going to answer it. And I got our shout outs. Now this shout out is from Justin. Justin wants a shout out to the Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department in Pulaski, I'm hoping, County, Arkansas. And also from Spencer. Spencer wants a shout out to the West Lake Volunteer Fire Department in Katy, Texas. Now you're going to get a sassy Sioux Falls Fire Rescue t-shirt. It might not look like this. We're kind of changing styles a little bit, so don't complain about this shirt. If we answer your questions or your shout outs, you're going to get a shirt. So sit back, turn all that electronic gear, get the kids, because firefighters are fun to watch, and hang on tight. When you look at winter firefighting operations, a lot of things to consider. Now, we just had a fire, a large fire. We have Randy Wold. He was here first in on that fire. Now, tell us, what did you see when you got there? It came in at about midnight, so it's dark 30. What are some of the things that you saw when you first pulled up on that fire?
Okay, what happened is we were just released from an emergency call, and then we got dispatched to a structure fire. It came down. As we were coming across on, I believe it was 14th Street, there was a lot of smoke in the area. The first problem we encountered was exactly which house was on fire until we got going down Colville Avenue.
Because of the amount of the smoke?
Yes, it was like real low on the ground. We finally found the structure, and when we arrived on scene, there was a lot of smoke, flames coming out of the Charlie Delta site. We then established a water supply, and we determined at that time, our captain did a good size up, determined that possibly this would be a defensive attack.
We talk about defensive, we're going to talk about that little layer, but down and dirty, defense, offense, what's the difference?
Okay, defense, basically, we're fighting from the outside.
Okay.
Offensive, we go inside and do an interior.
Because we know this is beyond our scope to be able to even enter that structure.
Correct.
Okay. So what else? Now you get in there, pulling off lines. What are some of the things that are running through your mind when you talk about, one, it's night, dark, and it's winter time?
First thing we had to determine was the type of fire we had. We had a fairly major structure fire. Our first decision was the line we pulled off. We pulled a 2.5-inch line off. Decided that our first objective was going to be exposure protection.
Okay. Big fire, big line, you're going to get that exposure?
Yes, we pulled a 2.5-inch off. We went around the building. We determined we couldn't make entrance into that building. Therefore, then we checked. We protected the delta exposure.
Okay.
There was a house probably 10 feet away. We made sure that fire didn't get on.
Because that could really easily spread from one house fire to 2 to 3 to a whole block if you don't watch those exposures.
That is correct. What was unique about this one is, in most defensive fires, you have a pretty good visibility. This one, there was times we had no visibility on this one until we got it to clear out a little bit because there was very little wind that night and it was pretty cold night. Okay,
Randy. Well, hey, thanks for your insight on this, and now we'll get a few more folks to tell us what they did. Now we got Kevin Sona. Kevin Sona is one of our new captains. Kevin Sona is also a third-generation Sioux Falls Fire Rescue firefighter. Now you were called in from a remote station into this fire, Station 6. And when you're thinking about these kind of winter operation fires, what are some of the concerns that you have being a captain with your safety of your crew?
The biggest concern on scenes like this with the amount of water we're flowing, because we're in a defensive position, the amount of water that piles up. You get slip hazards. Actually, we had a few people slip and get hurt.
We actually had
2 people get hurt. So the big thing for us is we get a sand truck out or some kind of sand to lay down on the slippery area so we have traction.
And we do have sand on our truck,
we do
so
keep
limited
a
amount.
bucket of sand, but the amount we had to lay down, we need to get some more sand out there. Some of the other hazards you have on this particular fire, we were on the Bravo side of the structure. The electrical meter.
Before we start, we go around the house. So the street side with the address side is Alpha, and then we just go clockwise, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So when you're talking about the Bravo side,
Correct.
we know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, and on that side, the electrical meter started to arc and spark, so we had that electrical hazard with the wires. So
and all the water were flowing.
With the water flowing, so in that situation, we had to back up and actually call in XL Energy to come in and cut the power, so we could continue defensive tactics on that side. Some of the other issues you have when you get that amount of water, your gear freezes, your gloves and stuff, so you start having dexterity problems and issues like that.
Then you're carrying additional weight too now, because all the water's freezing to you, freezing your helmet, coat, everywhere else, so that now you even gets to be changing that center of gravity on movement.
Right.
Okay, now people are going to wonder what can they do to help firefighters, and some of the things that what could a person do that would be a great benefit to us?
The biggest thing a person could do is cleaning out hydrants. We've had some situations recently where we couldn't find a hydrant, and it cost us valuable minutes to get to that hydrant, find it, shovel it out. You lose valuable minutes, you can lose a structure very quickly.
So when we think about shoveling out a fire hydrant, we want a 3-foot circle all the way around, all the way to the ground.
Correct.
And that will really help us a lot, because like you said, and we're just starting the snowfall.
Yep.
Now we do have shovels just in case we can't find them.
Right.
But it takes time.
It does take
time. Time is a very precious thing for us. I know people are going to ask, we got all these hoses out, hoses are filled with water, they freeze. What do firefighters do to prevent those hoses from freezing?
We usually try to keep the line open just enough to keep the water flowing. Otherwise, if you shut the hose off, over time that line will freeze up. So you just got to keep it flowing, and we try to put it in an area where it won't build up. Obviously, like an area where we're going to be walking, or we don't want it to run into the neighboring houses or anything. So
it's just a trickle, but just to keep that water flowing, to keep those lines from freezing up.
Keep them open.
Once they freeze,
they're froze.
It's a mess. Okay, thanks, Kevin. One of the most important positions at any fire is that incident commander. That's the person that's making essentially deciding the strategy and tactics that they're going to use to manage that fire. Now we have Mike Koopman. Mike Koopman's captain, also fills in for battalion chiefs.
Once in a while, yes, I do.
You do a darn good job.
Well, thank you.
Now the tough questions.
Yes. Lay it on me.
Okay. We're talking about winter operations. We're talking about when does an incident commander decide to go from a offensive fire, where we're entering, to a defensive fire, or when you're going to just say we're not even going offensive, we're just going defensive?
I think you have to take a good look at the building you're dealing with, the structure you're dealing with. Initial on this call was fully involved, so you see a lot of degradation of the walls, maybe bowing out, or the ceiling coming in. Any information you have about occupants or anything like that, if you know they're out. Anything where it looks like it's going to be really unsafe and on an unstable building, it's best to just say, let's back up and take a good look at it. And defensive might be the best operation if there's way too much fire.
We don't want to put people in. We want to risk a lot to save a lot.
That's correct.
And we put firefighters in, there's always that chance we could really get someone hurt or killed.
That is correct.
And another thing, now we talk about recio. And what recio is kind of the priorities that we go down. So R is rescue, and then we look at exposure. So if we can't rescue anybody, we got to make sure that fire doesn't spread.
That is correct, yeah.
And when you think about exposures, tell us what comes in your mind when you're talking about those exposures. And what are exposures, just for the folks who don't know?
Well, anything that might be around the building and involved. If it's a house maybe next door, if the houses are built, they're real close together, you don't want to damage any more than what's already being dealt with. So again, if you can keep it to the building of origin, that's a good thing. Neighbors would appreciate that, and less likelihood of damage to the neighborhood in general.
Now, talking about offense, defense again, when we look at human resources, people power, do you need more resources for offensive as opposed to defensive? Or explain that, how you think about, we're going to call second alarms, if we know it's a defensive fire right away?
I think it's about the same. It's, we're going to plan for an offensive strategy probably right away until we get there and take a look at things. We're not going to take any less people just because we're going defensive. I think, bigger fire, longer lasting fire, we might, get into moving people around maybe a little more if they're on scene for a couple hours, and maybe get them cycled out with a fresh crew and get them back to the station or something.
And talking about that, South Dakota, dead of winter now, we have to worry about hypothermia. We have to worry about even dehydration because the firefighters might be drinking. What are some of those things that we do on a regular basis that other departments can also use as ways to keep our people fresh and ready to go?
Try to get them, in a rotation where we can get them into a warmer environment. We get the city buses to come out. They can sit on there where Red Cross comes out with, some either coffee or hot chocolate or something, to kind of warm your body up. But mostly, it's getting another vehicle or get them back in the truck to get them warmed up for a few minutes and get them a little rest and then back out at it.
Great. Well, thanks, Mike, and appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
We have a lot of different jobs in the fire service, not just the fire chief and division chiefs and firefighters. We have a whole nother part of the fire service, the Fire Prevention Bureau. And this question comes from Joshua. Joshua lives in Pell City, Alabama. And he wants to know, what are some of the things a fire marshal does and how do you become one? Well, rather than answering that question, I'm going to introduce our newest fire marshal, Fire Marshal Dean Lanier. Dean, glad to meet you. Welcome.
It's good to be with you, Jim.
You are brand new as our new fire marshal.
Brand new.
Okay.
Barely a few weeks old.
But darn it, you're doing a great job.
We're having fun.
Yeah. Okay. Now, some of the things that a fire marshal does, and what's the name fire marshal implies you have a lot of authority. What you do?
Responsibilities of the fire marshal primarily are in 3 areas. That's fire investigation. Investigation goes wide to make sure that you could come up with a cause and origin for each fire that we have within the city. There's also fire inspections that we take care of. Fire inspections are across a wide diverse of different occupancies within the city.
And we have storage facilities.
Storage facilities,
schools,
manufacturing,
airports.
schools, airports, you name it. We have a pretty diverse business community here in the city, so the inspections do cross quite a few different areas. And then in addition to both inspections and investigations, we also do public education. So we're out in the school system giving fire safety briefings to kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we're also in the communities in retirement homes, civic organizations, doing safety messages for the general public.
In Sioux Falls, we tend to have fewer fires than other cities our size. And I wonder how much of that is related to 2 things. One, that public education in the schools when we start teaching kids, and then our aggressive inspection program.
Well, I tell you what, we have the nice background of having an outstanding fire marshal. I'm fortunate in the fact that I get to replace an outstanding fire marshal, but I've got big shoes to fill. Yeah, Perry did an outstanding job for us for a number of different years, and the fire marshal previous to him did a great job in laying the groundwork for that. So we've got quite a bit of history to make sure that we continue to follow. But we do a good job of making sure that we provide a great message to the kids from kindergarten through 5th grade, and then we follow that up with quite a bit through a few different training opportunities for folks as they make it into not only our program with the colleges, but also the different businesses around the city. We make a lot of efforts to make sure we get a good, coherent safety message.
Tell us about your background. What did you do before you became a fire marshal? Kind of that whole behind the scenes with Dean.
Well, with me, at a young age of 18, I decided that the United States military was a good place for me to go. So I joined the Air Force straight out of high school. Went into the Air Force and immediately became a firefighter in the Air Force. So
great place too, the Air Force.
Absolutely, great training. Fantastic place to kind of cut your teeth and learn the job of being a firefighter. Get a whole lot of experience in a wide, diverse kind of background, not only in aircraft crash fire rescue, but also in structural firefighting as well.
And you were there for how long?
24 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then
that's a long time. Dean? Well, the fortunate opportunity was for me to come here to Sioux Falls. I had visited the area several times and decided that this was an outstanding place for me to live and raise a family. The wife and kids love the areas. Kids love the school system.
You love the winter too. You went right past that question.
We absolutely love the winter. Yes, the sub-zero temperatures are so much fun.
Yeah, it's a treat.
Yeah, it's a treat.
So now you have the job of fire marshal. Now I'm going to go on to my next question.
Sure.
This one's from Joshua. Joshua lives in Dublin, California, and he wants to know about the job of a fire investigator. And are firefighters also investigators? And how does a firefighter become a fire investigator? Now I'm curious about that. We call them fire inspectors, but what's the difference between a fire inspector investigator. So
Well,
there you go. What's this investigator
Here in
business?
Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, all our inspectors serve that dual role. They are both inspectors as well as investigators. Now, when a new inspector comes on board, there is a bit of a continuity process that we move them through. We start them off with the basics. They take some online training. They learn about safety on the fire ground. They learn quite a few different things. So having a firefighter background is a definite positive towards becoming a fire investigator. It's not the only way to become a fire investigator,
but it's a deeper breadth of knowledge
absolutely.
within the fire service.
It's a step in the right direction. Now, after that, there is some training to go through. Like I said, our inspectors go through some online training. Then there's a process of about 6 to 8 months, sometimes up to a year, in which they will shadow an investigator on fire scenes. They will go out to the fire scenes, they will dig fire scenes with the other investigators.
And essentially they are literally trying to determine the cause of that fire?
Exactly. They're out working with an investigator full time, digging through fires, learning the science behind not only fire behavior, but also the scientific method of determining cause and origin on a fire scene. After that time, we generally send them to the National Fire Academy to attend Origin and Cause class.
Emmitsburg, Maryland?
Yeah, Emmitsburg, Maryland. They go out, they are exposed to an outstanding course put on by ATF as well as the National Fire Academy. Some really good teaching, broad, not only from a legal background of fire investigation and courtroom testimony, but also an opportunity to dig through some fire scenes with some very experienced people and learn quite a bit about utilizing the scientific method on a fire scene and determining origin and cause.
Now, as the fire marshal, what's one big thing you're pushing for right now? Any big things on your, on your radar screen that you'd like to, messages that you'd want to get out to people?
Well, we always want to deliver the message of making sure that people cooking at home are not leaving the stovetop unattended. That is the #1 cause of all fires in Sioux Falls. It kind of
30% of our fires.
Yeah. It dwarfs just about everything else in size and scope. But in addition to that, there's another message I really wanted to make sure that people aren't making the mistake of thinking that inside their home, in their utility room, is a good place to store flammable materials like gasoline, paint, those types of items.
Tell us why, Dean.
Well, the reason why is inside your utility room is where your water heater and your furnace is at, and generally both those items have an open flame at all times. Your standard 50-gallon water heater will have an open flame of natural gas burning all the time, as well as your furnace. So anytime you leave gasoline that's not closed, completely closed, airtight closed, you have the potential of having a fire.
And those vapors will come down, spread across the floor.
Vapors from gasoline or low-lying vapors will spread across the floor, and that's exactly where that flame is at for both your water heater as well as your furnace.
And we've had those fires.
Yeah, we've had those fires, unfortunately. It's something that we generally don't think about clearing our utility closets of all flammable items, but it is a potential fire hazard to have any flammable items inside your utility room.
And someone's going to say, where do I put them, Dean?
Well, we recommend, if you can't put it outside, put it in your garage. I'd make sure it's not within within 3 feet of anything that runs off electricity, but making sure it's cap tight, vapor tight, and then making sure that you keep it a good distance away from electrical outlets is always a positive.
And now, if people want handouts, brochures, what do you say to that?
They can always come down here to headquarters, Fire Station number 3 on the corner of 37th and Minnesota. We'll be more than happy to get them information. Or if they'd like to look us up on our website, they can look us up on siouxfalls.org.
Great. Dean,
all right.
I'm glad to have you part of the team.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim.
As we're kind of wrapping down the Big 5-0, this is the 50th episode. We've been doing this a long time. We get lots of questions from people specifically about the show Fire Call. And people want to know about stuff about division chiefs. So, this first question is from Zachary. Zachary lives in Winfield, Pennsylvania. And he wants to know, are your crew cameramen actual firefighters? Well, for this show, I'm going to introduce every single member of the cast and crew. And you know me, so that's not a big deal. First, we have our cameraman, Mr. Rich Murphy. Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Jim, it's a pleasure.
Fun? You might have to move aside for our next. We have our producer, Mr. Rich Murphy.
Hey, Rich, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Our editor, Mr. Rich Murphy.
I think they got the idea. It's basically a 1 to 2 man operation, just you and I and the questions. So.
Yeah, so there you go. Now, Rich is not a firefighter.
No.
but he works for the city of Sioux Falls.
Yes, I work for the Media Services Department, and we produce many monthly shows, including Fire Call for the fire department.
And which is the favorite, do you think?
We certainly get about 20 to 30 questions a month just for this show. So
people watch Fire Call.
People love it.
Yep. So, and what else do you do now? You do what's the technical name of what you do?
I am the City of Sioux Falls producer.
Okay.
That's my job.
And we got lucky enough to get rich doing this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I got some questions later on that kind of refer to that.
Okay. And I got some questions for you.
Sure.
This one's from John. John lives in Columbia, South Carolina. And he wants to know, does Sioux Falls Fire Rescue have photographers on staff, volunteer or paid, for historical or training purposes? And the answer is
no.
No. Besides kind of you.
Right. I come to as many fires as I can, have a scanner in my office.
We call up Rich and we'll say, Rich, I know it's 2 in the morning, got a pretty good fire, and he'll come out and videotape it, and we can use that for training, we use that for after action reviews. Now all division chiefs, battalion chiefs carry cameras, we videotape it, we have video, I shouldn't say, that's kind of old term now, isn't it, really? Videotaping, it's almost digital recording. In our command cars, people are carrying cameras. We have inspectors.
Inspectors have their cameras out there and everything. So yeah, there's many people covering the scene, as well as the media, obviously, that we sometimes occasionally get some footage from as well. We're good partners with the media.
And it's a great thing, because once it's in a digital format, we keep it forever.
Yep.
Sometimes we wish it would go away,
it's
but
great.
We got it.
Like you said, it's great training. I mean, a lot of the crews, not only from Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, from around the nation, around the world, have used some of that footage before, and so.
They always say, good firefighters learn from their mistakes, but the great firefighters learn from other people's mistakes. That's why we do a lot of that training all the time. Okay, so you got some questions.
I do. I got some questions for you, Jim. First one's from Tyler from New Hartford, Connecticut. It says, Dear Jim, how long have you been a member of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, and also how long have you been division chief?
I was hired in 1983. I was waiting for that phone call. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And so I've been here since '83. I love every second of it. I was a division chief, became a division chief in 1998.
Okay.
So it's been a fun run.
And you are coming up on retirement
fairly
soon.
I'm eligible next year. I'm eligible next year, so, So
we're hoping to keep you on.
Yeah.
What was the, Ethan from Owings Mills, Maryland wants to know, what was the first truck you were on?
Everybody at that time kind of rode through Central Fire Station.
Okay.
So I was at Central Fire Station for a while. Then I just kind of rode through the cities and I was at Station at 7, Central Fire Station 1 downtown.
Was it truck 1 at the time?
Yeah, it was engine 1 at the time.
Engine 1, okay.
And we actually in those days, flashback, there's just a few of us now in the department, probably around the country that have done this. We used to ride in the back of the fire trucks.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was great. You'd hang on the back of the fire trucks. You could pull the hose out to the hydrant quick,
Okay.
But yeah, riding the tailboard it was called, and I think there's only John Groen and myself, probably the last of the breed here that actually did that for that's just the way we rode fire trucks.
I'm sure safety issues the reason that it's.
Oh yeah, why we stopped doing it. Well,
no.
I mean, at that time we didn't wear. No one had seat belts. You just hang on the side of the truck and
it's a little chilly in South Dakota during the winter.
Yeah, it was.
Jeff from Middleburg Heights, Ohio asks, basically, you're a nurse.
Correct.
I'm a
registered nurse. I also have my master's degree in nursing as a clinical nurse specialist.
Does that help you at all in your job becoming division chief?
For part of my role as division chief is to oversee emergency medical operations. So as we look at that, combined with training, our number of EMS calls are going up. When I started, we were just really doing basic CPR.
Sure.
So having that knowledge, we've been able to now, and we're seeing more and more of a ramp up for medical calls.
Okay.
Yeah, it's helped a lot. And start planning, having that nursing background helps you coordinate with the hospitals and then see where do we need to be going to provide better care out in the public. We started the public access defib programs. We're doing 12 lead EKG monitorings. So it does help a great deal. Any education is really beneficial for the fire service. It doesn't matter where you are. What happens is, if for me it was nursing and EMS was a natural fit. If someone had a degree in, we have one of our division chiefs is finishing up his master's degree in an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. Natural fit is the administration role.
Sure.
So it just depends on where you work, but yeah, it's
It could be a structural engineer, obviously. It's going to help you.
We do have a structural engineer.
Yes.
Yeah, so it does help.
Those kind of things that, like you said, any degree helps. Next question is Ryfon from Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, Canada, wants to know, what was your first fire call and what did you do?
Okay.
If we talk about the fire call, the TV show, our first one was about Metro Communications and dispatching and how,
Yes.
and how everything kind of evolves from there.
Oh man, those first shows were...
We were kind of getting our legs, but we'll talk
were.
about that here in the next question. But do you remember what your first fire was?
You know, I remember, I don't remember necessarily my first fire, you know, car fire, whatever. I do remember my first significant fire was, I was a relatively new person in the fire department. Those days called them new guys. And we had a very bad fire. It was a triple fatality fire. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I can remember everything as clear as a bell from when we pulled up. And it was in the wintertime. And we were trying to get people out of this home. And it had such a jump on us that we did have 3 people die in that fire. And no matter what we did, even looking back and playing it over again, there's nothing we could have done differently except, and we didn't have them in those days. God, that sounds bad, in those days. We didn't have the smoke alarms that we do now, you know. And I think if that home would have had smoke alarms, that family would be alive today.
Austin from Jacksonville, Florida wants to know, basically, how did we come up with this show? How did we come up with Fire Call? You remember back in 7 years ago?
Can I see the question?
Sure.
Rich, how did we come up with Fire Call?
You and I, it was kind of it was your brainchild originally.
Yeah.
And originally the idea was that it was going to be a children's show.
Yeah.
Which is, and if you look at the opening credits, it still says the Fire Safety Show with Division Chief Jim Sedaris.
And we're going to have safety things for kids.
Safety tips for kids, and that's the reason it still has an afternoon time slot here in Sioux Falls. Is it was going to be an after school.
And we did talk about some of those prevention things. I remember the one we did. We went to the skate park, and how do we do that? And I think then it just kind of evolved. When we started getting these questions,
yes,
it just started evolving into a different animal, essentially.
Right, and now we've added different segments over the years, and when you go to a fire, there's so many things that happen at a fire that I've found that it's very knowledgeable to ask those firefighters that first went in what happened, how could you what could you have done differently as far as prevention and all that kind of things that come out of a tragedy that is a fire or an accident scene or whatever the case may be.
And the whole thing about everyone thinks, well, you read children's books and that might be your only interaction with firefighters is, okay, they slide down poles, they have red trucks, and they put water on fire, and they don't realize it has to be a coordinated incident attack on something. We have incident action plans. When you talk about putting 30 or 40 firefighters on a scene of a fire, how do you make sure no one gets hurt, keeping track of people, and it's more than just a bunch of people racing through town.
Right.
And a lot of times we're working with police, we're working with the ambulance service. It's come full circle, and this show, I think, had just gotten into that. And we got to fly with helicopters.
We have. We've done. Yeah. It's been, for me especially, it's been.
It's been fun.
It's been an amazing show, and I hope that we do another 50 episodes, even if you're not around for all of them.
Oh man, you already got me gone.
Thank you.
Firefighting is tough business, and it's cold, it gets hot, firefighters get hurt, so it's nice to see behind the scenes what we do to keep our firefighters safe. Got some more shout outs. We're going to wrap this show up. This shout out's from Mike. Mike wants a shout out to the Windham Volunteer Fire Department in Windham, Ohio. And also Jesse. Jesse wants a shout out to the Pierce Township Fire Rescue Explorer Post 950 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Thank you for your questions. We like that you're asking some really good questions. We got our shout outs. Of course, sassy, swanky, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue t-shirt. You wear this when you sashay downtown, people are going to pick up and notice. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's been fun. This is our Big 5-0. My name is Division Chief Jim Sedaris, and you've been watching Fire Call.